Coming at you from August from my sketchbook. This is the whole month of sketches slash marker sketches that I did. When I started the month, I realized that I was kind of doing the same thing over and over and over, and it just wasn't. I wasn't finding that source that made things difficult. So I decided that I would do a first sketch in my little sketchbook, and then I would go forward and do a marker sketch on them. You can see, doing the skull things, lining up, making like all the cyberpunk-esque things, making little detail notes, and then this is the marker sketch for that first day. I really like how the purples turned out, the pink, to me the cyberpunk is this real pinkish, bluish tint. So this might be a two-part sketchbook just because it might be a little bit longer than I figured for most months. For the second day, you have this image from a tomahawk. I know I covered it in the last month's video because I started out with that. And here is a sketch. I really like how those pieces turned out. The tomahawk itself turned out really awesome. And then moving forward, you got this image. This is the cover for a Thor issue. I like all the Thor people, but what really stuck out to me was this frost giant being killed by essentially this monster truck that Thor drives. And so then redoing that with color for the marker sketch. I really like how that tire turned out. The highlights on the spikes for the monster truck tire. His hand really turned out awesome as well. So really dug how that turned out. Fourth day, got this geisha. Didn't know what I wanted to do for the background. Kind of really quick sketched it, so did a higher detail of her face before moving on to this sketch. I really enjoy how that turned out. Just really, really incredible with those colors. Since I was doing marker sketches, I knew I had to do a rat rod. Did one last September, I believe, for the marker month, and this was no different. Kind of truing up the tire details, trying to square up everything so it looked good. And then onto the marker sketch. I like how the details in the background really stick out, really make the rat rod itself pop. And those little details for that one. Next one, you have this portrait of me when I was younger. I know, I was a cute little shit. For me, I don't necessarily like this sketch. I don't think I got it nailed down. Even the marker sketch doesn't look anything like me. Just don't like that day. It just didn't turn out well, and at some point I'll try again, but don't know what was not working about it, but just having one of those days. Onto this, you have this classic design of Miss Miranda. She's wearing these lingerie like in this abandoned building area, and this is the first sketch I did, the second one, and then did a third one, trying to get her face shapes correct. They weren't quite what I liked there, and then doing the marker sketch black and white, or grayscale kind of. Really like how that turned out. And so this next one was a bit of a tribute to older days of me. I've done this sketch before. I've actually done this painting before. I think it was back in 2014. Did the painting. It was way off. You can check my Instagram if you want to see how off it was compared to this one. But this is essentially a statue that was in Meltdown Comics. It has Frankenstein's monster eating an ice cream. I really like the designs of it, like dripping down his hand. And then the marker sketch, you can see I treated up quite a bit more. The hand's more prominent. Even gave it a little electricity background in the bolt. Really love how that turned out. On to the next one, probably one of my favorites for the month. You have this Medusa, and if you're wondering who I'm doing this, if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, I'm giving shout outs to the artists themselves. So if you're interested in finding out who these are, either ask me in the comments for previous videos as well, or you can follow me on Twitter and find out who these awesome artists are. But you have that little sketch. We did the face, trying to true up some of the lines and whatnot, and then the marker sketch of Medusa. I really like how some of those highlights really make some of those snakes pop. Really love how that turned out. On to the 8th day now, and it's another geisha. The second geisha of the month, holding this sword behind her. So I mean, it could be a samurai, but basically a lady in a kimono with a sword. I was trying to get some not negative, but some shadow work to do with this. Really messed with the face, got it a little bit closer there, and then really got it to work for the actual marker sketch itself. So really like how that turned out. For the 11th, going again with my friend. I've been drawing her just about every month. I don't think there's a month that I've missed, maybe, but don't hold me to that because there's possible. Really like how that turned out. And then the marker sketch turned out even better. Really love how that all worked together. Then something happened on the 11th, and I was actually tasked with drawing some OCs for other people. And you have this like electric demon girl. Most notably a reference from Makani Terror that I used. I think I've drawn it before. And then you have this original character of JoJo Seams, her little Elvis jackrabbit, dreaming of becoming a were-jackrabbit and terrorizing a town, kaiju style. Like how that turned out as well. The 12th brought its own set of fun with this Harlequin. I like how, for the most part, it turned out. I really like how the marker sketch turned out. Really nailed it. Like how that turned out. Love it. And moving forward now. And you have Betsy Suicide. I've drawn her a few times this year. Just trying to give myself a barrier, or not a barrier, but a measuring stick to see how much better I've gotten. Then going on with the marker sketch, I like how her hair turned out. Her body is kind of offset a little bit, so I made some notes along the side for me for that. Trying to chew up those lines as well. Then, let's see, we have the Berserkernaut for the 14th. This is my friend Jeff Lafferty's original character. Just put it on Indiegogo. If you check some of my last videos, you can find that on Indiegogo, or you can search Berserkernaut and find it that way. But I really love how that sketch turned out. Basically pointing to a sketch of him and saying he's not angry enough. Also threw up my logo for his Punisher style shirt, and doing the dripping zombie head for that. Really like how that turned out. So yeah, go check out my friend Jeff Lafferty's channel as well. I know I've drawn Sideshow's stuff before, but I really wanted to make my own OC come to life through his style. So you have that design of just this badass chick, and then I turned it into a picture of V holding Zeke's infamous machete, and then a pile of zombies around her. Really, really love how that turned out. On to the next, you got this little demon girl sipping this ale, elixir, something of the sorts, but I like how that turned out for the sketch anyway. Kind of lost some of the details with the color, so maybe something I didn't want to try down the line, but my hand just wasn't working that day. There's little deviations that just you can't tell. Also did this that day, and like there's just little details that throw the whole thing off that just make me hate looking at it, I guess. I don't know. But my hand started working a little bit better. You have this little bus in this junkyard scene. Not a bus, but like a tanker, an old oil tanker. Decided to ink this, try this one for the marker sketch. I really like the little details that I got in that. I wish it was a yellow. Like the yellow just kind of looks ugly, but I really like how that turned out for the marker sketch. I know I've featured this guy before. I really like the designs he does. It's Artem Solop. This is a creature from Black Lagoon kind of design, and I really love how this marker sketch turned out. The kind of different target lines and whatnot, just really cool design, and I really am happy with how that turned out. You have this Porsche sitting out of the shop at Rob Ida's. He's one of the guys that redoes old Tuckers, if you know what those cars are, in the 50s. He was trying to take on the big three for automakers, and he kind of got shit canned because he was trying to do too good for the world. But going on to the marker sketch, I really love how that turned out. The Porsche sitting in front of the garage, you see the light looking on from the shadows of the ground in front of him. Really love the detail I was able to get in that marker sketch. Then you have this witch design by Stephen Bowman. I really love his comic art. And then moving on to the marker sketch, I really like how I was able to get some of those lines that he did. Drawing the like magic flowing around her staff and whatnot. On to the next day, you have this like abandoned, I don't know, like psychiatric place, but you have this twisting, winding staircase. I really love how this sketch turned out. The little shadows I was able to get, showing the different steps and whatnot. And then moving on to the marker sketch, I really like how that turned out. Kind of got a little bit more twisted than I would have hoped, but for the most part, looks pretty good. Then, for the Sphinx Cat of the month, you have this Sphinx Cat where it is playing with like a makeup brush and like putting having a day, putting makeup on and whatnot. And then onto the marker sketch. Really like how that turned out. The little wrinkles in its skin turned out awesome. Then onto the 23rd, we have this abandoned, almost seems like a castle, but like this really mansion style with this rundown BMW out front. Trying to true up lines, trying to get that to look really well. It looks good for the marker sketch, but the color palette just kind of makes the picture itself look not as cool as I would have hoped. But I'm glad I got the practice in. For this one, you have this great designed rat rod which has this like skull featured of parts popping out of the grill. And in theory, it sounds cool to draw. Putting it into practice kind of ate up at me. I kind of designed my own where it was coming through a little bit more. You got this little punk rock Liberty Spike. Tried to get some more of the detail in the grill, but it just, I don't know, just didn't work out as well as I had hoped. I think the color palette has a lot to do with it as well. Then you have this Danny Hun. He painted his painter's mask, and then with these like teeth, and snapped a picture of it. I thought it was a really cool design, so I decided to actually sketch it and do another black and white for the month. So really like how that turned out with his mask. A lot of these people have been hitting me up on Instagram because I'm tagging them and showing my inspiration as well. And then you have something cool like this next day with so if you've ever read East of West, there's this character called Crow, and she's basically black and white design, black skinned, but this drawing reminded me a lot of her, and I wanted to draw that because in the past I have tried drawing Crow and it just hasn't worked as well as I wanted to. So I tagged the artist that inspired, or I drew this from, and they actually contacted me and told me that they were inspired by another artist and showed me what their original drawing was. But really like how the marker sketch turned out on that one. I love this whole design. Really turned out awesome. So then moving forward, another one of Rooster Teeth fame. You have Chelsea Hartford, and I think this was around 4th of July and whatnot. But her just giving peace sign. Really like how that turned out for the marker sketch. Turned out awesome. So glad to have tried it. Then you have this newer design for She-Ra. I was going to kind of draw it similar, but then I realized that I should probably imply my own style, and took that style and ran with my puppet design. Really like how that turned out. I really like the design. I'm looking forward to the Netflix series, and yeah, it'll be cool. I know I've talked about this before, but Blood Machines, this little short, and Kickstarter that I backed last year. Basically, cars are alive, and the connection they have to the driver. I don't know if this is actually a car, but I'm pretty sure it is. But I really like the purples and blues. Yeah, definitely check that out if you want. I think there's a 5-minute short. It's called Turbo Killer, which is I think the prequel to Blood Machines. For the next day, you got this abandoned like theater stage area. Getting the details of the ceiling was pretty pivotal to this one. I really like how that turned out. Like, again, I say the colors kind of washed out the scene, but for the most part, like how that came together. And then to end the month, you have this really killer design of Furiosa from Mad Max Fury Road. I like how that sketch turned out, but I really love how the marker sketch turned out. Her sitting on top of her old semi. Yeah, turned out killer. So that's going to do it for the month. Doing marker month again for September, so look forward to that. I think that's definitely going to be a two-parter, but drawing 2 sketches for the day, picking one to do a marker sketch, and then I'm actually keeping them all in the same sketch. So I'll probably do 2 videos, one doing the smaller sketchbook, and then one showing off the actual marker sketchbook. So I think this one's going to be about 20 minutes. So if you want to see these early, support me on Patreon. If not, wait for the whole month and see it next month. But I'm really liking how these are coming together, and they're turning out much better than I could have even hoped for. So I'll catch you for the next one. Thanks for all my Patreons over there, and yeah, keep drawing. Peace.